So he's standing right here. He got his arm at his desk, and he was making this impassioned plea and this why it's wrong, why we must not do this. We cannot expand slavery. He has a stroke and he falls to the ground. They laid him on a couch, which is still there, and he died 2 days later.
How was slavery eventually eradicated in the United States of America? Well, Speaker Mike Johnson took us on our second spiritual heritage tour of the United States Capitol recently, and he told a story that I think is incredibly inspiring. It comes from our sixth president, John Quincy Adams, who, after he was president, went back into the House of Representatives, and he happened to mentor a young man by the name of Abraham Lincoln. Speaker Johnson is going to tell you what happened. This is an amazing story. Check this out.
Okay, so you're in Statuary Hall. We call it Stat Hall. This was the original House chamber. Tons of history in here, obviously. For 50 years, this is where the House of Representatives did its business, from 1807 to 1857. And you remember the Capitol, the dome was completed in 1824, so they were here working before that was finished. And the Senate was in the, the companion building over here.
This is where they whack each other with walking sticks and
yes,
stuff?
It was a rowdy
this
time.
Room.
Yes. There was all sorts of stories. Every member had a desk. Remember, Congress, the House was much smaller than we had in many states, right? But they were all seated here, and they each had their own desk, and they had walking canes, and there were fights, and it was in the era, like in Lincoln's era, they had those tall hats, and so they imposed the no hat rule on the House floor because nobody could see over the hats. They had spittoons on the floor. They even had at one point an open bar in the back. Okay, that's legend. I don't think it's true, but they also had some very virtuous men who served here, as you know. And women eventually as well. But I always stop right here because everybody who served in the House who was also a president has a bronze plate on the floor. This is John Quincy Adams. He was our sixth president. I wanted to share you a quick anecdote about a man with moral character and what it meant to the country. He was John and Abigail Adams' son, of course. John Adams was the second president. This was the sixth. After he served as president, he came to serve in the House of Representatives. He's the only person who ever did it in history. And the reason was because he was on a mission. John Quincy Adams had a deep conviction from God that slavery was evil and wrong. And he was on a mission to eradicate slavery in America. So he came, he ran from his home state of Massachusetts, and he served here 17 years. And he fought every day. They called him the hellhound of slavery. He brought the resolution over and over to end slavery. But sadly, the country was not ready to do that yet. This is the mid-1800s, right? Well, they imposed a gag rule. They said nobody can talk about slavery. I was so sick of hearing from John Quincy Adams. And he broke the gag rule. And he also had another nickname, Old Man Eloquent, because he was really good on his feet. He was highly educated. He was a man of deep faith. You should read all about JQA. He's awesome. But he was standing here one night. It was February 21st, 1848, and he was making an impassioned speech. We had just won the Mexican-American War. We were expanding the country westward, and there was a move to expand slavery. And John Quincy Adams was having none of it. So he was standing right here. He had his arm at his desk, and he was making this impassioned plea and this just from the heart, just why it's wrong, why we must not do this. We cannot expand slavery. He has a stroke and he falls to the ground.
Wow.
Colleagues come and pick him up. They carry him into that room right over there, which used to be the speaker's room. Now it's the women's reading room. They laid him on a couch, which is still there. It's reupholstered, but it's still there. And he fell into a coma, and he died 2 days later. He was 81 years old. His wife was at his side. He was a great hero. So they had his funeral 5 days later. There were 6 pallbearers that carried the casket of John Quincy Adams, the former president. By the way, on about the 14th attempt, the famous story is as he was bringing the resolution and they knew it was going to fail again, a younger member of Congress walked over to the floor and they said, "Mr. President, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it?" He said, "Young man, duty is ours, results are God's."
That's right.
It's a very liberating way to live. If I got a tattoo, that's what I would have on my chest. Okay. Duty is ours, results God's. Okay, so he falls, he dies. He's the only former president to die in the Capitol, and one of a few who has, but he died in that room over there. 5 days later, they had the funeral, 6 pallbearers. One of them was a young freshman member of Congress from Illinois named Abraham Lincoln. Wow. Okay? So if you look where the plate of Lincoln is, that's the Lincoln room right there. And right at the foot of that darker statue right there is the plate where Abraham Lincoln's desk was. He only served one term in the House before he went on later. And he was sitting there and he watched old man eloquent stand right here and give these impassioned speeches about the sin of slavery and how we had to get over it. The 6th president was not able to eradicate slavery, but seeds were planted in the hearts of other men, and the 16th president got the job done. The moral of this story for us is that you just are called to be faithful. As John Quincy Adams said, duty is ours, results are God's. I don't get spun up about the results, because if people say, you seem very calm in the midst of this storm, because I'm not the sovereign. I get, that's my biblical worldview. I understand God is in charge of this, and all he calls us to do is be faithful. You don't know how many people you're reaching on your broadcast, your podcast, you're just faithful, right? And you put the truth out there, and you trust God to bring the fruit. You're not responsible for that. You're just responsible to be faithful. John Quincy Adams thought he failed in that, but he didn't, because he put the passion in other men's hearts.
Great.
And I just think that preaches to us, On a time we have more time, you can go into the Lincoln Room. We'll open it up, and there's some old Lincoln artifacts in there. He used to sit, allegedly, on his 2 years in the House. He sat there by that fireplace, and he used to be a post office, and now we just call it the Lincoln Room. And there's a tunnel. We can unlock it. There's no way for all of us to do that logistically tonight, but you go down this spiral staircase. If any of y'all done that before? And there was a secret exit to go out, just in case the British tried to burn the Capitol again. We were going to be able to get out of it.